Over to markets now, and the latest USDA crop progress report shows little change in the condition of soybeans across the country, with good to excellent ratings down 2 points at 60%. It's a similar story with corn, down 3 points and 65% good to excellent. This as several of the top producing corn and soybean states continue to struggle with drought. Darin Fessler of Lakefront Futures and Options joined me this week. I started our interview by asking about the shape of corn and soybeans in the state.
Yeah, the crop progress that came out Monday shouldn't have shocked really anybody. We looked for and anticipated some big declines in Iowa, which we got them again, declines in Minnesota, which we got them again. Nebraska didn't really decline all that much. I think the crops in general look pretty good, especially the stuff east of Lincoln. It was kind of hurting in the afternoons. You could definitely tell it was definitely rolling pretty good. Caught a rain here this last week. And so that stuff east of Lincoln now is looking pretty good. Is it last year good? Probably not, but it is still pretty good. Overall, I would say the central and southern parts of Nebraska, a lot of wells are cranking up here this week. But I think in general, Nebraska looks fairly good from what I have seen. All in all, the crop progress on Monday is not a shock here, but you got to look at how do we progress here in the weeks ahead here, leading up to pollination? Does Iowa, does southern Minnesota, do they catch some rain? So it seems like all the rain so far has been in the Illinois, Indiana, Ohio area. The Dakotas and us and down to Kansas, we've been missing out on a lot of big rains here. So that's going to be a real big determining factor where we go here. And keep in mind, the month-end report is going to be huge. And I think that's what the market's trying to do right now. It's just trying to gauge where these corn acres are.
And Darin, you mentioned some rain in the Dakotas, but there's going to need to be lots of rain to put a dent in those dry conditions. Is that continuing to be a big focus with these markets?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when I look at the conditions in North Dakota per se, and I have clients there that can still row their wheat, and we're a week away from July 1st here, the spring wheat crop is definitely hurting. And I think some of it's beyond the point of no return at this point. The corn and the beans, the same type of thing. Granted, they have some time if they catch some rains here, but the conditions across the Dakotas are not good. And it seems like all these maps so far are trying to keep the rain out of the Western Corn Belt, including Nebraska. And, you know, some are trying to put some rain back in here, but a lot of the heavy rain is going to be from the Missouri River east, eastern Iowa, Illinois are expected to get some plenty of rain here over the next 10 to 14 days.
Earlier, you alluded to the two big USDA reports next week. Are there specific things that you'll be watching for that could be market movers?
Well, I know there's a lot of talk about, well, we're going to get a lot of these corn acres. They're going to be 95, 96 million. Now, I'm personally not in that camp. I'm at 93.5 to 94. I think that's a fair number here, but I do think the overall acreage picture is higher because of the dryness in North Dakota. There was a lot of guys up there that got stuff planted that they haven't planted in those acres for 5 to 10 years. So acres are going to be higher overall, but I do not think we're going to get these crazy amounts of corn acres. Even if we get 94 million acres of corn and we have some weather issues where this trend gets down somewhere around 170 bushel a yield on a national scale, we're still very tight. That brings the stocks use ratio under 7.5%. So there could still be some fireworks in this market, but with the funds selling over the last month or so, it's going to be very difficult for funds to change direction here as the weather models continue to anticipate more rain coming, especially during, as we lead up to pollination.
Okay, we are closing in on the end of the second quarter of 2021. Let's get your price outlook in corn and soybeans. Where do you think the market goes?
Well, on the corn side of things, with assuming that we have 94 million acres and assuming we have somewhere between 170, 175 on the yield figure, I think corn balances between this $5 and this $6 for some time here until we get a little bit better handle of, okay, how does Iowa, Illinois, Minnesota, and Nebraska, how does the big kahunas, when it comes to the corn production, how do they pan out? I do not think that we're going to go back down to the test $4. We have way too tight of stocks use ratio to do that. And on the bean side, we're way tighter on the bean stocks use than we are corn. So if we have some problems in August, watch out. I think that could be a very explosive market in the beans. But keep in mind, I think that we're going to probably import a lot more beans from Brazil if we run into some weather. So that may taper this market down a little bit, but I still think this could be a pretty explosive market if you have weather. If not, I think we're probably pretty range bound for the time being.
And let's end things today with any selling strategies or risk management advice that you want to leave us with.
Yeah, right now I'm currently recommending clients, and I've been 50% sold on new crop corn, new crop beans here for the last few weeks here. I brought up new crop sales on corn, do 50% when we hit 631 on the Dees board. I brought beans up to 50% when we hit 1430. So I'm pretty happy with how we're going right now here. But I think if you get any type of market that moves towards $5.80 to $6 and you're still sitting here at 10 or 20%, you got to be looking to get some HTs in place here or some hedges. Take a look at buying some calls, selling some calls here, or buying some puts, selling some calls here when the volatility is high here. Just make sure it's backed by some physical bushels, and I think you'll be fine here. And the bean side of things, the same thing could hold true. I'm being a little bit patient here, being 50% here, but I do think this market, if you run into some weather, we're definitely going to be taking out 1480. If you do that, 1480, I think you're going to $16, $17. Granted, we are a ways from that right now, so we got to see some consolidation, some support right around this 13 to 1280 mark on November. If you can do that, I think the bulls can gather some momentum into some weather plays later on this summer.